Alright, time for another DraftPhysics.com video presentation. Debate physics also, but damn, hard to find debaters. Somebody willing. I've offered thousands of dollars, to the more popular channels for some opportunity to make this provocative argument and stimulate the necessary counter arguments and proofs and debunks and all of that. But no takers. Okay, no, nobody willing to. I'm going to basically pay them to attempt to, humiliate my physics, destroy it in some way. Um, and of course, the only volunteers, doing it for free, aren't doing it very honestly. So, it really doesn't have any credibility because, they'd rather go back to 1940, something I said in, 1950 and argue that. But anyway, all right. And they don't argue it by actually drawing a lever and countering my exact arguments. They contrive, something else to argue, straw man. Anyway, so this will be, I guess, an update video. There's another video I want to make, but I'm going to see. I'm going to invest a little more time and see if I can get this guy to actually play along, kind of thing, before I just point out how it's just another faker, phony channel that sells itself as doing one thing and it's not doing that. But anyway, so this week I did do a bunch of videos as usual. Since the electric boom video, I guess so. That's the last one. The you know putting a more proper context. Now, unfortunately, I haven't seen any. I haven't seen. I guess I'll have to do some looking on purpose and see if I can find some other people who have responded to the statements by both Veritasium and Electric Boom, or whatever they're basically saying. And again, my argument is somehow everybody's basically agreeing that somehow, the what's happening in the wire is some sort of field effect, and they're agreeing with the notion that the idea of electrons moving through the wire beads, little bits of little balls of pressure, and that's what the electricity is doing primarily. That somehow that teaching tool is wrong, and so they're conceding his, I think, wrong argument. Okay, that there is anything wrong with that metaphor or analogy, because there isn't anything wrong with it. It's pretty damn close to the truth. All right, anyway. Then kinetic energy, just re-emphasizing all of the arguments, all the points that just make kinetic energy unviable. I've been there and said that and done that, and there really there isn't, plainly, anyone willing to make a logical, model-based explanation for how kinetic energy is possible. All they care to do is do mathematical derivatives based on made-up equations that are completely circular. They say 1/2 mv squared is the truth, and then they find a way to make it the truth by saying work equals force times distance, and basically saying that somehow gravity cares about how much distance you're traveling, when all gravity cares about is how long you're in it, how long is it affecting you, and that'll decide how much energy you derive from it. So anyway, in the last video was on the motor force, so I'll do a little bit more on that, because I left some things out, and you can go too deep. It's hard to hit the right level of describing a physical concept. Whether you should go all the way to the nuclear level or some other step first, is more important in terms of gaining some understanding of cause and effect. It's like the cloud chamber or the ferrocell. I mean, ferrocells say on their surface one thing. I mean, it just overtly looks like bent light. I mean, it is bent light. I mean, the light you're seeing is bent. Okay, it's coming from a location that's bending. But you go deeper and deeper, and you find that that's not actually correct. You're not seeing a laser beam bending. You're seeing light going through a medium that's bent. You know, and that's all you're seeing. Little bits of it are reflecting. It's a piece of plastic, essentially, in the ferrocell. Little tiny shreds of plastic that are doing the same thing as a piece of plastic would do. So yes, you can bend the plastic and make the light look like it's bending, but you're not really bending the light. That's what the little shiny iron filings are doing. They're reflecting light to you. So I'm just saying it's, you know, this is the process of dissecting some circumstance and finding, you know, the real mechanism. All right. So yeah, so I guess, is there anything else I need this for? All right, well, I'll take a little pause, and then we'll do a couple of points on the motor force, and maybe it'll be a short video. Yeah. So I don't have, you know, I can just, you know, I'm in the process of itemizing all the facts that have to be absorbed and collected, you know. And now, you know, once you have all those facts that are relevant, you have to make, you know, see if you have enough of them. Then you have to match it to all those facts. You have to figure out a mechanism that satisfies all those conditions. And that I haven't completed. All right. So the thing I would add to the argument, so the video's on the website. It's called The Motor Force. I mean, what can I say? You know, I wonder if it's even indexed in Google. You know, frankly, if you put in DraftScience in Google and the motor force, I wonder. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it matters, but it doesn't matter in the sense that nobody cares. The index, the internet's not very well indexed. Who cares? How could that be important? Shit. All right. So you have these different experiments. Okay, you know, I really don't want to keep doing all this, you know, go with the basics over and over again. So wire in between magnetic field, you put electricity going one way or going the other way, the wire pops up, pops down. All right, you have the swirly bits in cloud chambers. It's really the same idea. You know, then you have the wire spinning around the magnet, or the magnet spinning around the wire. And that's a key point I left out of my analysis, was the fact that this is about pressure between these two things. And the fact is that what this is telling you, okay, the motor force, is that the pressure is obviously opposite. See, the wire jumps out, but if I made the magnets very, you know, they could move really easily, the magnets would move. It's about the pressure between the two. It's about pushing on a surface, okay, in this case. It's not just about it just levitates the wire. It levitates it by pushing. So this goes this way, okay? If the wire's going this way, the magnet's actually going this way. It just doesn't have enough energy to move. So in this case, it's a fixed magnet, and it can't spin. So this does the spinning, the wire. And if you do the other case, then the wire's fixed, and the magnet can spin. But the idea is if they were both loose, they would both wobble around each other. I suppose that would be a better experiment. I'm not sure if Faraday could do it, though. You know, where you're suspending the magnet and you're suspending the wire, both on loose, you know, where they can wobble. And then the two would spin around each other. So that's something for me to think about, whether Faraday had this magnet fixed, or whether he did have it floating in the mercury. I mean, if this is a point where both of them can move, you know, but that would sort of prove the point that it's, the motor force is kind of the opposite of the impression. It's going this way, so you have a right-hand rule, but the actual force is going against the South Pole and against the North Pole. There's creating pressure against both of them, and they're moving in the opposite direction. So the intuition says it's like the solenoid. So that's what I was going to bring up. What I sort of had missing here was solenoids. Okay, the idea that you have a coil of wire and you put iron in it. All right, and now it's a load. So if I just have the coil of wire, the only wattage that's going to be used is heat. So the only thing I'm losing, okay, that's the actual load, okay, is heat. So there's no if I could make a a superconductor, um, the load isn't absorbing. There's nothing here absorbing any of the electricity in terms of creating the magnetic field. As I've sort of pointed out, the electromagnetic field is really radiation in the environment, and you're just changing, like me, changing my reflection. I don't have to use my chemical energy to change the reflected light, what I reflect back to the universe. The energy hits me and I reflect it back. That doesn't require me to create the energy. Now the motor force is different in the sense that it does end up using electricity. So the load has to, the electricity moving through the wire has to be diverted from its function to create the pressure, okay, that will facilitate the action. So I can't make a magnet spin around a magnet. Okay, so I can't find some way to make a static magnet spin around a static magnet because there's no source of energy. So it can't do it. It can't do it merely by reflecting, the universe differently. And this effect can really only happen when you've given something energy. And the energy is as simple, apparently, as a charge, okay, that has radiating. And the fact is, when you move it, it reflects more in one direction than it reflects in the other direction. So if I move towards you, I reflect more energy to you. I move away from you, I reflect less energy to you. And that's the electricity, so to speak, the electrical potential that you're exploiting for this effect is the electrical potential of moving towards you means there's more energy coming off you. The direction you were leaving, there's less energy hitting that direction. And it's just that elemental. And yet you have this, the effect isn't, that we know the electron's going this way. How come, okay, it's losing energy going this way? Why is this conversion happening? So this energy this way is being sacrificed to create energy this way. Alright, so you have the electrical wire doing the same thing in the sense that somehow it's going to have to affect, okay, the magnetic field it's in is going to be affected, and it's going to, instead of pushing electrons this way, it's going to start losing energy, pushing them this way. And I mean by losing energy, they're somehow going to push more or in a way where they don't come back. See, the ocean waves work because gravity, the water pressure that goes up for the wave, it gets the energy back. The energy goes back into the forward motion by the wave being collapsed by gravity. So anything you do out, you get it back with the in pressure. The same is true for the electrical wire in the sense that we're all in an environment. And if it pushes out, it means it's pushing against more force, and it will be pushed back into the wire again. So the energy going through the wire is maintained because, like an ocean wave, okay, it's not losing it by rippling the surface. The ripples on the surface of the wire are all energy it gets back. So anything it loses moving, it gets back moving in the opposite direction. So the key point is that a solenoid is doing the same thing in the sense that it's converting the electricity into motion. And we know, I think, we can surmise that if I fix the magnet, the coil will move. And if I fix the coil, the magnet will move. And there are circumstances I can create where if I don't allow the solenoid to solenoid, that is, I wrap the wire around a piece of steel, I've technically made a solenoid, but if I've wrapped it all very tightly, the wire can't move and the magnet can't move. And I end up with a strong magnet. So, now I don't know if those two are directly related. How strong the magnetism is based on how much motion you allow. So the more motion I allow in the coil, the less magnetism I'm creating in the steel. The energy all has to be conserved, so you can kind of surmise that yes, you get a more powerful electromagnetic coupling if you don't allow the two to escape, and the energy has to be converted into extra magnetism. All right. So that's the group of facts, I would argue. Now there might be some other mechanical device. So I'm saying a solenoid and a cloud chamber electron and the magnetic field jumping thing and the Faraday illustration of this force, the motor force, this idea that something travels around. So again, the fundamental argument I'm making is the fact that an electric wire, and I could put electricity in or I could take electricity out this way, and it creates this field. This field does not have any rotation in it. The field is not rotating. We can't put anything in there and make it rotate except for a current carrying wire or perhaps an electron. You could shoot an electron in and perhaps it will spin around the field. That's a hard experiment to do. So, but you know, that's the relationship. So the trick is that it's not just about electrons going a different direction. I mean the outcome of right. The argument is the outcome of the right hand rule, or left hand, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter, is the fact that first it pushes out the opposite direction, and it is the reflection, okay, that is creating this turn. So it takes, the initiating pressure is being created by the wire. The wire is creating an effect by hitting the other surface. The other surface is pushing back. And so we're getting a direction that's actually a consequence of exactly the opposite direction. So although it's a right-hand rule in the product, what happens as an effect, the effect looks like right-hand rule. The actual force is operating on a left-hand rule. Because this is also motivated to move just as much as this is motivated to move. So that's a key fact that has to be appreciated before you try to model this, is that the initiating force is exactly in the opposite direction of the product force, the product energy. All right, I think that's cluttered enough and such. So let's see. I'll take a pause and see if there's any last little bit of, there's a point where you just say, until somebody with a brain shows up, I got nothing to argue with. And that's disappointing. It's disappointing that all these debunkers, all these people who know something, they really hate the debate context. They really hate having an actual argument. They hate having to defend anything. They hate, they all want to just preach with it, do a nice, quiet congregation. And that ain't how science should get done. There should be some nitpicking. Now, the amount of nitpicking would be the argument, right? I mean, there shouldn't be double standards. Like, okay, I believe Einstein, even though, well, you really don't have any evidence. You didn't redo the Eddington experiment, and you never proved that atomic clocks are incapable of being altered or changed, and therefore break and just do what every other clock does, which is fool you into thinking there's some kind of irregularity in time, when no, there's no irregularity in time. There's just an irregularity in how well your clock works, how reliable your clock is. You're not sensing with your thermometer the actual temperature because your thermometer is broken, which is just such an easy argument to make. But people believe all that crap without scrutinizing it at all, without asking any questions. Sad. But anyway. Alright, so yeah, that's enough. So it's there's so many subjects to talk about, so many interesting phenomena to talk about, and how they've gotten all of them, frankly, just about all of the elemental, all the ABC blocks, they have them wrong. They have They don't have an A, they don't have B, they don't have C. They have X, W, and K or something. And it's just a mess in terms of having so little right and so much wrong when it comes to the really foundational elements. And it's just as catastrophic as religion to regular philosophy. These fairy tales, yeah, you can make a civilization, you can have some kind of order in the world with that structural break, but there's no truth, there's no integrity to your lives. You're just living lies, by living in a culture dominated by derivatives of nonsense. You punish people not because they need to be punished, okay, to satisfy some revenge or some sort of reclamation. You punish people because reward and punishment works on the human animal, and it will deter future violators. Deterrence is why you have a justice system. Not revenge, not even justice. You just want deterrence. Alright, so till the next time, and such and so forth and whatnot. Yeah, that's enough. That's all you deserve, I suppose. Okay. So this has been a DraftPhysics.com. Debate physics, like I said, also, but nobody will engage. Can't get anybody to participate in any kind of, even though we have this fantastic medium, you can make these videos, you can make your argument, can't find somebody capable of countering any of it. So I'm radically saying, I'm overtly saying you are all wrong, you are all full of crap, and yet none of you can man up and make an actual modeled response, modeled based response, and recite the evidence that proves your case. F equals MA. Well, no, it doesn't. Actually, it equals momentum. Anyway, till the next time, and such and so forth and whatnot. Yeah, that's it.